We welcome you today as we celebrate this feast of the dedication of the Lateran Basilica. And this is a celebration the church has where we are commemorating a specific building. But I'll connect that a little bit to the rest of our faith journey. It was owned by the Laterani family, and in the 4th century, 324 specifically, it was dedicated as a cathedral. And an inscription was placed on this church that it was the Omnium Ecclesiarum Urbis et Orbis Mater et Caput, which is a way of saying that it was the mother church of churches throughout the world. So it's a very significant church that is in Rome. And it was destroyed and rebuilt a few times as time went on. It has a little table that kind of buried within it. It has a little table that is thought that St. Peter celebrated Mass using. So it has this kind of special relic and item. And so today, when we hear this reading from the prophet Ezekiel that is commonly heard around memorials and feasts of dedications of churches, that, the water coming out of this temple. And what I think we need to try to take from this is that this temple is Jesus Christ, right? Jesus himself. And so this living water comes from him, and he wants to share this living water that comes from his heart, his pierced heart at Calvary, with his people. And as we read, I think, in the Gospel of John, he says to the woman at the well, he says, "I thirst." What does he thirst for? Right? He thirsts for her faith, for her reciprocity to his gift, that she is able to return this divine love, receive the grace of God, and be able to be part of the church. And so, in this, what we're seeing is that the church building itself, a church building is important. And sometimes Protestant people will kind of quote to me, they'll say, the only temple of God is in our heart, and that's the only place where God dwells. That very recently, someone told me, the only place where God dwells is in my heart. And I was like, yeah, hopefully he does dwell in your heart. Hopefully he dwells in my heart, and that would be true if we're in the state of grace. However, it's not really true to say that that's the only place where God dwells. As Catholics, we believe that God is present, and that he is present body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist, in our tabernacles. So we can't deny that he's present there. And he's also present in the church itself, in terms of that this is a consecrated space. It is a consecrated space that is set apart. That is one of the reasons that churches are supposed to have beautiful art and music and artwork, and because it's supposed to help lift our mind and soul to God. Also, he is present among the communion of the faithful. And as Catholics, we believe that the church exists as a visible union, as a visible community, not just as an invisible association of believers throughout the world, but as a visible communion. And so part of this is just a lot of Catholics don't necessarily know their faith very well, and this is the incredible pressure that is exerted by the Protestant denominations, and especially cultural pressure that is exerted. And so I want to mention one more thing too that is, I think, significant. So in this scene, we've seen this scene a few times in over the course of our lives. We hear this gospel, and Jesus, he makes this whip, and he sort of attacks the people in the temple and drives them out. Now, is this Jesus just having a moment? Right? Well, I hope not. I don't think that's necessarily what this is about. I don't think this is so much Jesus getting fed up. I think that this is because essentially what was happening was sacrilege. That they were selling things in the temple, and they were overcharging people, and they were doing this mistake that would come up again and again in the church of charging for something that either shouldn't be charged for or charging way too much. So they were ripping people off. But another thing was just that people were not being allowed to pray. This atmosphere of commerce was distracting from the prayer that was meant to happen at the temple. And I want to challenge us a little bit today. And I want to do this gently, but I do want to challenge you that when we go to Mass, after Mass, it's understandable that you may see people that maybe, they were probably here yesterday. You probably saw them, have seen them a few times over the past few days, and you may want to talk with them a little bit. But we want to really have an atmosphere of prayerfulness. Some people really need a lot of silence to pray. And I want to encourage you, if you, as you examine your own behavior and conduct, have a tendency to talk a lot after Mass, to try to take that outside the church and to let people who want to spend a time of thanksgiving, which is a very noble and commendable idea, let them have that time, and it can be challenging to do that. But I just want to encourage us to help keep Our Lady of the Gulf a place that is a quiet place after Mass. Let people have that time, and let them have that time to continue to pray and to be able to separate that socializing that seems to happen and let that be separate so they can have that time. So as we continue in this week, I pray God will help us to always honor the temple He has built and the temple of our own hearts where He dwells.